Hello, everybody. Wishbone8121 here. And I just wanted to give a short update. I haven't been uploading much to my YouTube or Rumble channel recently because the past week and a half I've been working on a big Twitter project. As you can see, I've got over 300 followers now. It was 40 about 4 days ago. What happened is that I posted information about this Ukraine-Russia conflict multi-thread on vivabarneslaw.locals.com, and Robert really liked it, and he ended up retweeting it actually twice. He retweeted the main Twitter thread right here, and then he retweeted basically each of these threads has a group of videos. A lot of these you've seen if you've been keeping up on my channel. I basically took all the videos that I've done so far from the time we started until right now. Anything I've put on my channel about the Ukraine-Russia conflict, I cut it up into 2-minute and 20-second segments and fit them into various threads on escalation. So that I've got like the OSCE report in there. The Nazi problem. I also put the shelling in there as well. NATO is a defensive alliance. Yeah, I've got tons of footage of them blowing up everything. Operation Mockingbird, and then Robert also retweeted this thread here of Putin's character as a man, which is mostly Robert and Rich Barris talking. Well, that's why this one's been retweeted a lot. And then ended up putting all the false flags in with Mockingbird. This one is really good. It's got just tons and tons and tons of stuff. In fact, we'll look at it really quickly just because these are really good. Tons of videos of some of them are newer. I've got two of them from the shelling of the maternity hospital a few days ago. This is the video that's gone the most viral, 16,000 views. I mean, Twitter views are not exactly real views, but that one's been seen by quite a few people. And something else to know is that over the last week or so, as Russia has been getting very close to winning the battle in Donbass, the Ukraine Nazis have begun to shell Donetsk using the American and French weapons that we sent them. So yeah, this is it's been pretty crazy in Donetsk recently. And I've been keeping up to date more of it more on Twitter than I have on Rumble. But yeah, our weapons have been being used to kill civilians in Donetsk, which has been shelled like 400 or 500 times a day over the past week or so. Alrighty. So there's that, and then I'm going to show you a couple videos of this real quick, and then of course the Leviathan thread here at the bottom is mainly on all the stuff about the globalists, which I've covered on my channel, but it's still really good. It's a really good reference. And then what I'm going to do is actually I've made a couple videos that I really like for this Twitter thread, and I'm going to show them to you here in just a minute. I'll just attach them at the end of this video. And then, yeah, so if you guys want, feel free to follow me on Twitter because I've had more success on Twitter than I have on Rumble. So I might focus more on Twitter for now. I'm also going to be making a multi-thread just like this, except it will be on... Here, I'll show it to you, actually. It will be on the violation of the Nuremberg Code in the U.S. COVID response. So I'm going to be doing another multi-thread. This one's going to be really good. Really, really good stuff. I got a lot of information. It's probably going to take me a month to actually make it. And I will upload some of that stuff on Rumble first, I think. But yeah, it's going to be really good. I think you should follow me on Twitter. I think it's an easier platform for me to get the word out. So I'm going to be switching most of my actual time and effort to making things viewable on Twitter for now. Feel free to follow me on Twitter if you want to retweet this out, or you can use this, like let's say someone's like, oh, I don't believe in Nazis. You can just come and be like, oh yeah, of course there's not Nazis. There's just, a video of them crucifying somebody, a video of them performing a satanic blood ritual, stuff like that. And then, more Nazis and more Nazis and more of them being Nazis. This is them, like, using tanks on civilians in Mariupol, more Nazi stuff. So, yeah, you can just use this as a reference. With that said, it was nice to check back in with everybody. And then I'm going to show you those 3 videos on the three-dimensional nature of the conflict that I made for this Twitter thread. And very cool that Robert Barnes retweeted me. And you guys have a nice day. See ya.
Beginning in the 1980s, CIA-controlled universities and CIA-front publishing companies began to target Ukraine in a massive anti-Russian, pro-Ruthenian fascist mind control propaganda campaign. Simultaneously, under the Ukrainian purview of Operation Gladio, NATO began to train Nazi terrorist armies, leading to the overthrow of the government in 2004 and again in 2014. After which the American deep state was able to appoint cabinet members, and the Nazi NATO armies were officially recognized in the military structure, including as the personal guard of the president. On November 2nd, 2021, CIA Director William Burns sends himself to Moscow to publicly accuse Putin of warmongering, which is followed by a mild but consistent propaganda campaign declaring that Putin is attempting to rebuild a communist USSR and conquer Europe beginning any day in Ukraine. On February 15th, in violation of the Minsk Agreement, NATO, under the false flag of Azov and Aidar, the Nazi divisions of the Ukraine military structure, invaded Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics with roughly 1,500 artillery pieces, over 500 multiple-launch rocket systems, and approximately 2,400 tanks, in a 60,000-strong Ukrainian force, taking up defensive positions in heavily fortified, pre-planned, multi-layered defensive lines within artillery range of the major cities of Donetsk and other civilian-occupied areas, and began to shell the civilian populations of Donetsk and Lugansk. The OSCE during this time period noted an increase in shelling attacks from 0 per day before February 15th to 1,400 per day between February 20th and the 23rd, which included fire from both sides. On February 24th, the Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics formally requested Russia's intervention to prevent the extermination of civilians, principally those in the city of Donetsk. It is important to note that as NATO began to attack civilians in Donetsk using the Ukrainian military, on February 22nd, the U.S. State Department, under the leadership of Anthony Blinken, unilaterally ended peace negotiations with Russia and launched its first shot in the economic war by sanctioning Nord Stream 2. With peace negotiations at an end, facing economic war with the United States and genocide in Donetsk, Russia was forced to launch a special military operation. After forcing Ukraine into a military war which it cannot win, with a military trained only in defense and terrorism, the globalist empire, which I call Leviathan after its name in the DC Comics, launched a pre-planned sanctions war against Russia, claiming that it would damage the civilian population in Russia so severely that they would cause regime change in Russia and end the military conflict in Ukraine through economic means. Most likely cooked up by George Soros himself, these unprecedented sanctions not only violated the international principle of sovereign immunity, this shock and awe sanctions campaigns levied against the Russian civilian population purposefully also violated federal law, all in an attempt to stop Russia's military. Alexander Mercouris and Alex Christoforou of the Duran, as well as attorney Robert Barnes and pollster Rich Barris, warned that these sanctions would have a negligible effect on the Russian people because it is self-sufficient in food and energy, and that damage to Russia's industry due to supply chain disruptions would only be temporary, and that any attempt to sanction its exports would lead to explosive increases in energy and gas costs in the West, and a worsening of its inflationary recession, as well as a food and fertilizer crisis in the global south and an increase in export revenues for Russia. Russia responded to these unprecedented sanctions with capital controls, and they also hiked their interest rates to 20%.
Their only offensive counter-sanction was to demand that the West, which had stolen all of Russia's foreign reserves held in dollars and euros, pay for gas in rubles. Unsurprisingly, the Russian economy not only proved indomitable against the combined economic might of the United States, Europe, Australia, and Japan, but has decisively proven the superiority of the Putin economics of production over the Soros economics of imaginary-based monetary systems. Leviathan's unwillingness to accept defeat has left its military assets in Donbass, who do not have permission to surrender, stuck in a losing war, while its political assets, who do not have permission to negotiate, stuck in an ever-escalating cycle of self-defeating sanctions. As the alleged vampire lizards in the World Economic Forum seethed in rage, presumably because they were prevented from drinking the blood of Russian children, the adherents of the Church of Lucifer gnashed their teeth as their god, the father of lies, once again was exposed as having overstated his case when he said, "I give the nations of the earth to whomever I choose." As both the military situation in Ukraine and the economic war rapidly deteriorated for Leviathan, its brain-dead assets and media, owned by its ruling class, stumbled over each other in a deranged quest to dethrone Scary Poppins as the supreme leader of the Orwellian Empire, with exponentially ludicrous assertions. Meanwhile, one of Leviathan's chief allies, the military-industrial complex, added its strength to the mainstream narrative. Imposters who claimed to be conservatives, led by CIA Hannity, debased themselves, whoring both themselves and the Americans who trust them out for war. And not just any war, but a war supporting satanic Nazi murderers. This affront to conservatism led even honest conservatives into disgrace by convincing them to uphold a regime known for terrorism against journalists and children. As Mockingbird assured us that our Nazi heroes, the Azov Battalion, were successfully evacuated because its combat mission in Mariupol was completed. Just like the Nazi SS was evacuated from Auschwitz on January 27, 1945 on the completion of its mission, which was similarly accomplished by Russian forces, the global South gaped in fascinated horror. Mesmerized by the spectacle displayed by the West as it sanctioned itself into a post-apocalyptic dystopia, governments in South America, Africa, and Asia fled from the madness gripping the West, resulting in a staggering loss of support for UN resolutions against Russia and a refusal from the global community to sanction Russia, one of the primary providers of their food. Thus, Leviathan lost not only on the military and economic fronts, but on the political front as well, isolating and shaming themselves before the world while Putin earned the respect of everyone.